All right, so good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jesse, and I am with Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. If you're joining us for the first time, we are all about bringing conservation, adventure, and science into classrooms around the world. And I know this is the strangest time for teachers on the planet, so I really appreciate as you guys continue to join us live and on YouTube as we celebrate and showcase scientists, explorers, and amazing people from across the globe. So earlier today, we got the chance to hang out with Parks Canada in both French and English in the Pingo National Landmark up in very northern Northwest Territories. And it was such a fun adventure to get to go up there and see such amazing landscapes. But one of the big questions that we got throughout the broadcast was about modern life in the Arctic. What is it actually like to live in this amazing place that so many Canadians have a sort of slight understanding of, so many Americans for that matter have a slight understanding of, but maybe don't get the chance to hear what it's actually like to live there. So with that, I'm really excited to do today's program in partnership with the Arctic Institute of North America. They're based at the University of Calgary, and we have done a series of, I think, 10, 12 programs with them over the last few months. Always an exciting time to highlight Arctic stories of observation, conservation, and more. Today, we are joined live by Alexandra Anaviapik. I got that, I think. We're joined by her in Pond Inlet in Nunavut, and we are going to learn a little bit about what modern life in the Arctic is all about. So without further ado, Alex, thank you so much for joining us. Please pronounce your last name correctly for me and take us away.
Udlakut or Udlukut, depending on your time zone. My name is Alex Anaviapik from Pond Inlet, also known as Mittimatalik. Mittimatalik, that's the traditional name. My last name, Anaviapik, was actually my grandfather's first name. Kind of funny to say, because traditionally we never had last names. So my last name is my grandfather's first name, Anaviapik, and my first name, Alex, is short for Alexandra, given to me by my mother when I was born. And here in Pond Inlet, it's fairly sunny, still lots of ice and snow, and it's slightly warming up to, let's say, a 15 degree. I don't know how you can convert it to Fahrenheit, but negative 15, negative 20, not bad.
I'm trying. So sorry, negative 15 or positive 15?
Ooh.
Where you are?
Negative 15.
Oh, very cold. Freezing, beyond freezing. Zero or less for our American friends today, which is pretty exciting.
Oh yeah, no. So we keep warm by having these homemade parkas and mittens. I'll put them here. They kind of look like boxing gloves, don't they? These are mittens made from sealskin. They're nice and soft here. And a bit of fox fur. Sometimes rabbit, sometimes beaver. But it keeps us nice and warm.
Alex, would you like me to dive in with our pictures and then you can tell us a little bit of the stories as they're going on? There's the obligatory phone call in the back of the broadcast. Would you like me to bring those up?
Sure.
Awesome. Let's do it, guys. Let's dive in. You can tell us a few stories of adventure while we're there.
So this is a photo taken by a friend of mine. I use it generally for my bios. But that parka that was made by my grandmother, who is no longer with us, but she made it out of old sleeping bags. So a lot of store-bought clothing are not as warm or as comfortable. Therefore, we use a lot of homemade parkas. The fur lining around it is actually made with fox fur too, same. And we always tend to make new ones every other year because fashion changes. This is made by my best friend's sister. These are nice and warm. And it's all handmade. And that parka, I actually still have it after 11 something years. So it lasts a really nice long while keeping you warm. If it thins out, you can still use it for like late spring, early fall kind of parka. And then here on my side, I usually work project by project basis. And one of them was I was a tour guide or a guide, expedition guide for a cruise ship company during the summer going through the Northwest Passage. And this photo with the same parka is actually in Greenland, doing a little bit of zodiac driving. And from my family, I can trace back a few generations where I actually have cousins all the way in Greenland in a small community, northern community called Kana. So where I'm situated, you go around the ice down to Greenland, and then here a small town called Kana. That's how my family used to travel by dog team. So it was nice to see family. And then from here, where I am, where I'm situated, it's a nice long sound. So there's a big L shape in the body of water. And right across from me is Violet Island. And a kilometer away, when the ice was freezing, a huge iceberg got stuck on and grounded in the ocean. So you can see just the little small little bit of part right there. On the bottom right iceberg under the dirt looking ones, you could see people. There's like three to four people there just right up against the iceberg there. And you can see how big they can get. And when we see them, we can actually chip away at it and use it for tea or fresh water. Nothing beats 1,000-year-old fresh water. And these giant icebergs are coming in from Greenland and then making their current back into the sound, Eclipse Sound. And whenever one passes by during the summer, we're always hoping that it would ground and freeze up around so we can have it as iceberg water for tea. And here you can see that little map there. Are you able to put the map a little bit bigger?
I'm trying to make it bigger. I'm trying to see if I can do that for us.
Like a full screen, if you will.
See. Oh, there we go.
Aha.
Aha.
So, are you able to toggle your little mouse towards the top of Baffin Island?
I'm gonna try for you here. Oh, this is a new tech. We've never done this before.
There. So right on Baffin Island in the top here, Baffin, the two-tone blue.
Yeah.
Put your mouse out right there. That's where I am. And this is Kikaktaluk. The island is called Kikaktaluk, or Giant Island. And in each different areas of the north, anywhere towards the northern ocean is where Inuit are. So we can range from all the way from Greenland to eastern Siberia, or a little past Alaska there. And even though we're all Inuk or Inuit, Inuk is singular, a person. Inuit are plural, people. So you can, if anyone tells you other, like, what do you call yourselves? We call ourselves Inuit as people, but a singular person is Inuk, I-N-U-K, and we're always at the north. Not usually within the tree line, but there are some tree lines in Alaska there. And each different area has their own different dialects, how we speak Inuktitut. For example, we say thank you from my northern Baffin Island dialect. It's called Koyanami. Can you say it? Koyanami.
Koyanami.
Mm-hmm. So that means thank you. In the more west you go, the sound kind of changes a little bit. So in that dark green area there, the Kivalut in the Kuwaitan, they say matna for thank you, or kwana So all these different areas, same culture, different dialects. If you can think of like Europe, you have your Germans, your Italians, your French, your English. All these places are in within Europe, different cultures. Think of it like that within North America. Inuit are not First Nations or Métis, so we're in a different subgroup of our own. And in each different area of Canada, you can see invisible cultural lines. So within the tree line, you have your Dene, you have your Iroquois, your Mohawks, any other First Nations. They have their own little pockets. But in the north, where there's polar bears, we always have Inuit or Inuk. In Canada, we call ourselves Inuit, and in Arlene, sorry.
While you're dealing with that, Alex, I'll just mention one thing that I really love. I don't have a banner for it to bring up on the screen. Nativeland.ca is a really fantastic resource for our Canadian friends tuning in today to find out what the native territory, like what the territory of the Indigenous people on the land you are on now, formerly or you're classically belong to. Here in Toronto, it's the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the Mississaugas of the New Credit. So nativeland.ca is a really great way of finding that sort of thing out. I think a lot of our classes won't be from the territories that Alex has been sharing with us today, but I really encourage our groups to check that out. So I'll try and get up a banner for that later. Alex, is all well now?
Yes, sorry about that. The intercom went off for a sec here. I'm actually located at the elementary school where I'm working.
Nice.
And in our side note here, in where I am at the elementary school, the first 3 years is always in Inuktitut, so our language. Inuk is person, titut is the way of or how you do it. So all together, Inuktitut, the way of the people or how people do things. It's not just the language, but more of how you physically do it. And actually, this is my first time seeing the sun in over 3 months. Because of how high we're located, the first sunset was November 11th, and the first sunrise was February 2nd. So you can see how long we don't see the sun where I am. So just seeing that sun or just a little glimpse of it made me very happy. And the parka that you saw earlier, or my parka here, that's the parka that I'm wearing. And whenever we see the sun, we got to face it and wave at it, say, hello, nice to see you. How you been? Now it's April. In about a few weeks, it's going to be 24-hour daylight. So the sun will always keep going higher and higher and stay up until, let's say, end of August, when it starts dipping low and low and low, and then gone by November 11th, give or take. But yeah, it's super cool being able to see just 24-hour darkness or 24-hour daylight, just being up here. But for those who are not used to it, it's a bit of a hard adjustment, because we're visual creatures, so we need light and we need dark. We need that contrast. And if you're used to it, you don't really think about it until it happens to you. For those who are coming up north and they can't really sleep with the light, pro tip, put tinfoil on your windows. Or in the winter when it's always dark, you're having some vitamin D deficiency. So what you can do is go under the fluorescent light and sunbathe for 15 minutes every day. Just your morning routine, and you'll be good and energized for the day. And then here is my favorite eggs. So every kind of animal that comes up north here, the bigger games or the bigger birds, we tend to eat them. This is common murre. They kind of look like penguins. They're black on the outside with a little white chest, and they fly though. They're called murre, and they're cliff birds, so they have to go all the way up. and lay their eggs. They don't use straws or grass or anything to nest. They always put it on top of the rock. That's why they're a little bit pointed, so they don't tip over anywhere. And next to it is the chicken egg, store-bought chicken egg. Now, during spring, we can go get our geese eggs or geese, our murs or mur eggs, our fish, our caribou. They're really, really good. And narwhals, belugas, these are kind of everyday food that we eat, and we don't waste every little, just none of it. My favorite food is actually makdak, which is narwhal skin and blubber, super yummy, and caribou when it's nice and frozen solid, so we can eat it raw, and also seal intestine when it's stewed and you cut it up. It kind of looks like meat macaroni. So you can see that there's nothing truly wasted, and it's really yummy. If you're not used to it, you can just have a little bite. See, it's like, at least I tried. It's not for me, but at least I tried.
Alex, I just want to interrupt for 2 seconds to say, so I get to see all the teachers in the background, and for no broadcast ever, and I've done 1,000 of these, have I ever seen more people with just more like delighted faces for the entire course of the broadcast, which is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I know our pictures are kind of out of order here, and I think we're going to cover these eggs again, but you are a fantastic storyteller, and I'm so excited to continue and to take questions when we're at the end. I have to say that, but it's just so delightful. Thank you for all of us. And let's, oh, there's an egg picture. Like I said, I'll just...
So that mer egg right there is when you boil it, and the yolk is nice. As you can see, the yolk is right in there, and the egg white, when you boil it down, it's nice and clear, and the taste is not super eggy. It's actually extremely mild. Geese eggs are really heavy. Like if you think of like American cheese to cheddar. Chicken egg would be American cheese. Geese egg would be cheddar. And this one would be more of a brie, if you can kind of imagine how a taste would be. And it's super nice. It's super firm, super healthy. It's healthier than any of the store-bought food we get. And can we go to the next slide here? Thank you. And here you can see it's not always ice and snow. This is the time when it's not now, but in a few weeks from now, where I'm located, you can see Bylot Island across. It's 14 miles out from where I am to the next island, so you can see the big sound. The first thing that melts is the snow from the land. And you get all these little streams of water, and they're super fresh. They're glacial water, so they're very safe to drink. And on the sea ice right there, now that's actual sea ice. It's not river ice. It's not any, but the first layer that gets to melt is the snow on top. And these sea ices are super thick, like meters upon meters of thickness of ice. How they break up is actually through these cracks within the ice, and then they break apart. And we actually get flora, fauna, and different types of birds here. And it may look desolate. There's no trees, nothing bigger than actually this big that grows past where I'm located. But in the warmer areas, in the warmer Arctic, they can go really tall. So there's no trees here. We don't, I think the word for tree is called napaktok, the thing that sticks upright. And we do get, back in the day, we do get driftwood here and there, but very rarely. So we have to be really resourceful in terms of not wasting anything and use every little bit for something.
Trying to go to the next picture for you, Alex. It's doing something funny on me now. There we go. That should work. Perfect.
And here we have the Inuit alphabet. Inuktitut, like I said, the way of a person or how it's spoken. Traditionally, we were never a written culture. Nothing was ever written. So this here is called syllabic. So you have a letter and a vowel, a letter and a vowel, a syllable, if you will. And it was actually derived from a missionary back in either northern Manitoba or somewhere there. And instead of writing everything in a long English word for a word that small in a different First Nation language, he created a short form. And that short form traveled all the way across Nunavut or the north, in the Arctic, and it just stuck. And then we modified it to our own. So here in it's we have 3 columns and only 3 vowels. U, A. That's E, U, A. And then each line after, there's a letter. E, B, D, G, G, Mi, Ni. And anything within our language is basically from the throat here. Nothing too hard in the front. So if we say the letter T, it's not a hard T between your teeth here. It's more of a close to a D. 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 Or P with nothing too front. So B. E, B, D, E. But it's really hard in the throat here with near the bottom. V, re, K, K. Like these harder sounds is right in the base here. And then it echoes out. If you can say clam, it's close to that muscle movement right here. Clam to ka. Clam, ka. See? Now, in Inuktitut, because everything is more based here, sometimes in different dialects, they have substituted words for one word over another, like tisukak, which means sliding. In a different dialect, instead of saying tisuka, they say situka. Situka, tisuka. It's the same, but a few letters here and there would change. And if you want to learn how to write your name in Inuktitut, think of it how it would sound like. So for me, it's Alex. Here, I can just quickly write it down here. Like so. Anything with a dot on top has a double vowel. So that's a double A, L-I-K-S. Instead of A-L-E-X, it will go to A-A-L-I-K-S. Alex. So it's all phonetic. So if you want like a Donna with a hard D, it has to be a T. Or if you want like Roger, there is an R, but you have to use that. Like so. And these, the smaller ones, the small finals, like so, they don't have a correlating vowel. So you can mix and match however you want, as long as it can sound how you say it. Then it wouldn't matter of how you spell it. It's not a lot of rules, but
amazing.
It's pretty fun.
I've never, ever in any of my broadcasts in the past ever held my throat and said clam 7 times. I think some of our teachers might have done that too. That was great. Let's keep heading with the pictures here. We've got some cool, looks like food possibly coming up.
Yes, that's actually called iguna, or fermented something, or aged, or like stinky, if you will. So this is a frozen piece of walrus that has been caught in the high summer, so when the sun is always up, and it's cached underneath rocks and gravel, underneath the ground, several feet under, or with huge rocks so the polar bears won't get it. And so you catch the animal, you gut it, you place a few things here and there, and then you put it underground and let it age until the peak of winter. So you 5-6 months, give or take. And that green little bit right there is actually the fat. And the fat it's close to stinky cheese, basically. Yeah, right there. That gray looking greenish thing right there, moldy bit, it's actually quite really tasty. We grew up on that. So if you grew up on stinky cheese or pickled eggs or anything with a strong flavor, this this wouldn't be that strong, but it'd be pretty powerful too. And because we age it in the middle of the summer, like you can just, ooh, yeah, sorry.
Sure.
With those uh, aging processes, it's really good for our gut digestion because it has a lot of good bacteria in it. So the fat or the blubber would go from like a peachy skin tony color to like a dark deep green. Super stinky, but it's really good. And
We
then
had,
the next flower next
yeah, well, we'll head to the flowers. Like, we had someone join in on YouTube literally in the midst of you talking about the moldy flesh, which is amazing. So for our YouTube viewers, welcome in.
Hello. And these are called mountain avens, or we call them malikat, which is kind of like our northern sunflower, and they kind of follow the sun around. And a lot of our different flowers and fauna not really edible, but there are a few that's really good, like mountain sorrel. We do have blueberries and crowberries, but on the island, there's more on the mainland. So on the island, we're very limited to the few species of flowers and berries or anything too edible. But on the mainland, you have your cranberries, your salmon berries, um, mountain sorrels, what do you call them? Labrador tea. And because we never had wood for firewood or building supplies to heat up our igloos back in the day, or would be seal oil lamp. So that greeny fatty bit, if it wasn't green, it was fresh, then we would use that for fuel. But in the summertime, we would use what is called Arctic heather. And these little bushes kind of like gather and grow together like so. And you pick them, you dry them, and you keep feeding the fire to have that nice little um, small contained fire. It's not a big bonfire, so it's something small that you can contain and cook quickly. Like so. So we're feeding the fire and we're making seal stew. Now we only used a little bit of water and we put a lot of blood in it, the seal blood, in because of like there was no grocery stores back then, so we had to hunt and fish and forage. So that's what my grandparents grew up on, my ancestors, everyone, and I grew up with that too. Now, cooking something like that over fire would generally be over the summer back then. But now we have ovens, we can do it anytime. We have modern conveniences, but it's still nice to have home cooked comfort food, if you will. And nothing is wasted. And yeah, no firewood there, just using heather. And that was today's what, April? Yeah, 2 months ago. In February, when the sun was about to show up and rise for the first time. Now we don't see, you can see the peak, a little bit of peaky pinch or pinkiness on the top of the mountain there. Excuse me. Our first sunrise would be coming from the west. So that looking, that one there is going northeast. And there's a full moon right there, so you can see where the direction of the sun was. And February is the coldest time of year. When the sun is starting to come up, it starts to get colder. I'm not sure exactly. There's some sort of science to it, but I can't think of it at the top of my head. But yeah, and in there you could see just a little patch of something on the ground there, and that's actually called a sod house or kamma, which is a traditional dwelling, like not during winter, but more like spring or some slightly summer and bit of fall, depending on where you're camping to or from. And you put soil, put it around, and have your own little rooftop a whale jawbone right there as a beam for your house. And that's still standing here in Pond, and use that as a little monument or a little statue what you would see in your community. But yeah, so when the sun starts coming, the pretty pastel colors show up. And then here is caribou fat. Consistency of cottage cheese, maybe slightly thicker and drier. Oh, actually, candle wax. There you go. Super yummy, super good. And still, we eat it raw. And you just need a little bit to keep you warm, and you're good to go. And see, you can see that's actually my hand right there. So you can see how small that spider is. It's called a wolf spider, or we call them asivak. It's a different dialect called ashivak. Ashiva. There's a famous Inuit artist called Ashivak. So, spider. And a lot of our insects here are bees, or mosquitoes, flies. I haven't seen wasps anywhere, but mosquitoes, flies, spiders, bees. These are the common bugs that we see. No ants, but because it's in the high Arctic, they develop a lot slower than our southern counterparts. A butterfly would actually take 7 years to fully be a butterfly instead of that little cycle. In here with these wolf spiders, not to my general knowledge of how long it would kind of grow into, but they're pretty cool to see if you're able to catch. But if you don't have a trained eye, you would miss it. And the number one scariest thing to an Inuk man is not a polar bear. It's a bee or a spider. If you hold one up, they start running away, running and screaming. It's like, get that thing away from me. See, being scared of bugs is a universal thing.
It is. I think we're rather disheartened as people in the South to know that there's mosquitoes that far north. So we've got time. Well, let's finish off these pictures. This has been so much fun. You mentioned before we got underway with the broadcast that you'd love to talk about all this, and that your passion and enthusiasm is unbelievably infectious. So let's share the last few pictures and try and take some questions with everybody. Again, the
yes,
has been so awesome so far from everyone there. So let's do our last few pictures here together, Alex.
So we do have two small general stores in the north. Mainly the co-op or the northern. The co-op is a cooperative, so you can become a member and you get dividends at the end of the year. It's a small general store. And this section right here is the hardware, the clothing, the fabric. And then to the far left, it would be more like everyday grocery food. It's mainly dry goods. And we get flown in our fresh produce once a week, like your apples and oranges and bananas. Next.
That actually appears to be it. Doesn't seem to be any more.
And on the left here, there's actually fabric, so you can make your own parkas.
That, by the way, I want to say in advance of all the teachers saying that is a truly beautiful parka that you showed at the beginning of this. So very, very cool.
Hey, thank you.
Alex, I'm going to end our screen share here and come back to you. Let us have a bit of a conversation. Mm-hmm. That was so fantastic. Geez,
I have tons more.
I bet you do. Let's dive in with questions, and if people have more questions afterwards, they can always email me. I think we're going to have a great conversation here. We're willing to go a little bit over time as long as you have that time, Alex. But what I want to start with is Mr. Lavogue. If you want to start us off in North Palm Beach, come on in and take us away.
Okay, great. Thank you, Alex. Or should I say Koi and na mi, right? Thank you. Anyway.
Koi and na mi.
Yes.
Matna for sure, for a better. Thank you.
We're really fixated on the last name. So when did the Inuit start using last names? Why? And then your last name, then if you had a child, they would have a different last name because they would have a different grandfather. Is that correct?
No, traditionally, because we never had last names, we would go like you're the son of, daughter of, like your Stevenson, Davidson, these sons, like kind of like the Norwegians or the Danes or whichever over that way. But no, we were always associated within our small little pockets of family. So we never needed last names. And we never had huge gatherings of people all at once before. So never needed last names. Although we do have this, how do you call it, reincarnation, if you will. If you're named after someone, therefore you inherit a little bit of that person who passed away. So I actually have 6 names, and only 3 can fit in my government ID. So Alexandra, Grace, and Angnaoyak. Angnaoyak is my great grandmother. My great grandmother's kids are now my kids, if that makes sense. And they're like 80 right now, and they still call me mother.
Interesting. This is
exactly.
Way to open up a can of worms, Mr. Lavogue.
And then when the government came in, quickly here, when the government came in to do their census, they were kind of baffled that we never had last names. And then they said, well, we need this for ID, so pick a last name. Actually, your first name is going to be your last name, so you can pick a first name. The church was actually quite prominent here, so you have a lot of Pauls, Jacobs, Marys, Rhodas. Any biblical name is usually a strong first name right there. But then their first name became their last name.
Yeah.
So, yeah. It just all became part of the government census, where it's like, you kind of baffling.
I think that topic alone could take us all, the fact the government came in and sort of said you have to have this sort of name for our form is a very odd thing in and of itself. It's something that we covered a lot back in October. We did a whole epic series on the Cheney Wenjack Fund on Indigenous identity, Indigenous politics in Canada. Yes, we could, as I said, Mr. Lavogue, open us up with an interesting question to kick us off. Let's go to Fultonville School, Mr. Breslin's class in Sherwood Park, Alberta. Keep the train going. We've got a whole bunch of classrooms here. If you guys have a question for us, come on in.
Do you guys eat seal eyes for dessert sometimes?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. It's fish eyes, seal eyes to caribou. Now, I couldn't share one right away, but I do have one. If you're squeamish, please look away until your teacher says to do so, because otherwise it might be a little gross here. But yes, so this is a seal eyeball in a child's hand. It's my little cousin, and that's at the beach. Now you can turn if you want to get back and not see the squeamish bits here. But yes, so seal eyeball is really good and tasty. My favorite is actually caribou ears for cartilage, so you can munch on them. Oh, and fish eyes for sure. And my little cousin, her favorite is the seal eyeball. It's super jelly on the inside, and it has actually quite the crunchy center. You just check out. But yeah, it's really, really tasty. But the eyeballs, like, generally, like, super big, because they have to see underwater where it's all dark, right?
I promise if I come up, I'll try the seal stew. The eyeball might be a stretch for me, but I'm really glad you shared that. And thanks for the warning ahead of time. Miss Lawrence's class joining us all the way in Las Vegas. If you guys want to come on in for a question, and then we'll head to Robert Thirsk and Miss Allegro after that. Miss Lawrence, come on in. Go for it.
Okay. All right. So I have a student that wants to ask a question. Jordan, go ahead.
What is your favorite thing to do or up there? What is your favorite thing to do?
Favorite thing to do?
I'm sorry, it's a little muffled there. Miss Lawrence, are you able to say it back?
Yes. He's asking, what is your favorite thing to do in the Arctic?
My favorite thing to do in the Arctic is going sliding. Everywhere there's ice and snow, so you can just bring your your sled everywhere. And my favorite type of sled is actually sealskin, a pelt of sealskin. It's super smooth and you can go really fast downhill. So it's my favorite thing, just playing out there. And I know a lot of my nieces and nephews, I used to do it myself, that when it gets really cold out, we would come back home with our cheeks frozen. You get frostbitten. But we were having so much fun that we never really felt it.
You have done such an amazing job of illustrating a point that, when I was a kid growing up, there was a lot less effort to educate Canadian children on Indigenous communities and Inuit communities. But the one thing that I knew as a child was that everything was used. If an animal was killed, every part of it was used. And you've highlighted that so well, whether it's in building structures with whale bones, whether it's in parkas, whether it's with sliding, right, mittens. And I think
mittens.
Yeah, it's such a, you've done an amazing job of illustrating that lesson for everybody today, and it's been so exciting. Mr. Lake, let's go to Robert Thirsk. If you guys have a question for us, come on in, unmute that mic, and you're good to go.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you. All of my kids are virtual, so they're watching you and they're throwing me questions. I did have a question. You started earlier in your presentation with the map of all of the different cultural dialects in the area. One of the questions was, when you interact, I'm assuming that, you kind of move from one area to the other. Are there any kind of cultural barriers or language barriers when you have interactions that way?
Language barriers or culture barriers? Mainly culture barriers, because closer to the tree line where there's First Nations, they were into tribal wars. So Inuit would have these little squabbles with the First Nations or vice versa within the tree line. But going from one northern area to another northern area, there are some dialects that would be very different. So we have to kind of learn and adjust. Okay, here's the root word, like Pualuk, we call them Pualuk. And then the suffixes, kind of like German, the suffixes determine the sentence. So if you're able to figure out what the root word is, oh, I know what that is. And then you can figure out the suffixes after, and then it's like, oh, I get the gist of it now. So Pualuk mi, I have a Pualuk. If from a different area, they would say something completely different, but they would have the root word Pualuk. So you kind of understand. It's like French, Creole, French, Cajun French, Quebec French, all these different kind of French dialects. Is kind of like the same thing with Inuktitut in language. It's the same thing, but different dialects. And you can kind of get around to it. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, perfect, yeah. Guys, we're nearing the end of the official broadcast, so time flies and you're having fun. So what I want to do is take a quick question from YouTube, and then Alex, you can email me this later, but if some of the classes have other questions that they want to pass to me in an email, if there's a way to get those to you, if you're willing to answer that, that would be a godsend, because I know that there's more questions than we could shake a stick at in one broadcast.
Mm-hmm.
The question from YouTube, which I love, and it's one we get a lot with Arctic presentations, what do you use to build your houses if you don't have trees?
Good question. So sod house, soil, or snow, or in the summertime, sealskin, or any kind of thick hide that you can build your tent around. And for different structures will always look differently in each area. So here, because not a lot of resources, it may look a little smaller, but the further west or different areas to go, it may look a little bigger, but it will generally have the same circular frame, if you will. And also, if you have and we're running short on time here, but if you want to know more through TikTok, there's hashtag Inuit, INUIT, or hashtag Inuk, INUK. There is an amazing woman from Northern Quebec who teaches a lot of what our culture, exactly, thank you, through TikTok, and she does throat singing, which I can do, but I need a partner, and it goes, it's all within the throat here. So if you have TikTok or use any hashtags, ta-da.
Fantastic. Alex, honestly, this is one of my most favorite presentations. I've hosted 1,000 programs. This is one of my favorite ones I've ever been involved with ever. So thank you so much for this. Again, the teachers, I've never seen teachers more excited consistently throughout a program ever. We've had astronauts on. We've done all over the world. We've had programs. You're a special presenter, and I really Thank you
Thank
for your
you.
time today.
Oh yeah, we haven't even covered tattoos either.
We're gonna have to do another broadcast. We'll bring you back on.
That's another one. Yes.
Come on in. Alex, is there any last message you want to share with us before we wrap up the broadcast to sort of cap us off for kids who might want to learn more about the Arctic or head up to the Arctic in person someday?
Yeah, so as you can see, we did everything here online, or we are in a remote high Arctic area, but that doesn't mean we're not connected to any social media, either Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. So if there is any way that you're curious about our culture or our language, there's always resources online as long as you figure out how, like, just use that hashtag and you'll be able to find us.
Awesome.
Or if you're into news, there's always Nunavut news or any northern news that you can find. You'll be able to find us out. I'm actually on Facebook, not on Twitter, but Facebook is enough.
Probably for the best. Don't go on Twitter if you can avoid it. We're on Twitter. Feel bad about it. Alex, this has been so much fun. What we do at the end of every broadcast, I'm going to bring in all our teachers to say a big thank you and farewell. And then you and I can stick around at the end to have a little bit of a chat. But for now, Mr. Lavogue, Mr. Bresden, Miss Lawrence, and Mr. Lake, come on in and join me in saying a big thank you.